Do you have all the things they say should make you happy, but you still feel unfulfilled? Are you always doing what you should do? Or do you never feel like you're enough? And you want to feel better, more fulfilled, more aligned, and more comfortable in your own body? Then this is the show. Scared as fuck and doing it anyway, showing up authentically. My name is Paula Schuster, and I'm a self-love and authenticity coach. My life completely changed when I started loving myself again, putting myself first, and being true to me. This is the show that's going to help you get out of being stuck, out of the cycles of self-abandonment, and help you choose yourself without feeling selfish. It will give you not only inspiration, but awareness, courage, and insights to make changes and live your life for you. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Scared as Fuck and Doing It Anyway, Showing Up Authentically podcast. I'm your host, Paula Schuster. In today's episode, I chat with Bolo Prather. He is an endearing, lifelong yogi and a musician from Yandara Yoga Institute. And I mention Yandara because that's where I met Bolo. And for those of you who know me, you know that Yandara is one of my very favorite places on earth, not only because of all of the powerful transformations that I've experienced when I was there, but also just because of the beautiful, heartfelt people that are there and just all of the magic that Yandara is. In addition to being a musician, Bolo is a songwriter, an actor, a teacher of self-realization and authenticity, and someone who shares fun and artistic stories. For some reason, I was really nervous about this interview with Bolo, and so at the beginning, I forgot to have him introduce himself. But you'll get to know him by listening to this episode and some of the other questions that I ask him. He's super laid back, he's funny, and he flies by the seat of his pants on a regular basis, which I really love about him. This one is a bit of a long episode, and I was going to edit parts of it out, but I decided not to do that because my podcast is all about authenticity, so I'm not editing. So take what you like and leave the rest. And anyway, this is just a really unique conversation with a one-of-a-kind person who I admire a great deal. The conversation winds around many roads, yet somehow is all connected. And the best way that I can describe how Bolo talks, it's kind of abstract and nebulous, but what he says absolutely has meaning and a clear applicability to real life. And we were able to pull in, some concrete and tangible threads along the way too. So that was good. The things I really appreciate about talking with Bolo are that he's engaging and he makes me think and process and integrate. And I think I'm still integrating some of the things from our conversation. And I think that you're gonna get that same thing out of this conversation too, or at least I hope. So without further ado, please welcome Bolo Prather.
Why, thank you. It's a pleasure. I'm in a squeaky chair, so it's okay. It's yeah.
Squeaks and all. We love the extra noises. So Bolo, sometimes I'll just kind of get us started and then we'll just roll with whatever happens. But, sometimes people have journeys, where they aren't really living authentically and being authentic to themselves. And then they go through some sort of, transition or transformation that helps them sort of have awareness to that. And then they're walking more authentically on the earth. And then sometimes people are just naturally authentic all of their lives, So, what's it been like for you? What's your story?
Well, I think soon as you get here on the planet, there's a bit of a plan for you that your parents have. They're, in
Right.
this case, my dad was a jock, lifeguard, way into sports, as was my uncle. My mom was, a babe at the beach kind of vibe. And,
Right on.
and so they both, then I know I was born from the expectations of a father that expected a wife to, he got up and went to work at 5 a.m. and he was going, oh, I want to get up just like his mom. Breakfast will be ready at 5 a.m. And that was not my mom. So I came through that way personally into a world where two people not on the same page, but there was something that brought them together, and what brought them together was a, you know, this is what you do. You look, this is the woman you look for, you know, the hottie or whatever it is, or the woman's looking for the guy that does this. So, and I think a lot of us are we're born into a situation that is always not in the best interest of a peaceful situation,
Right.
but really it's like sand in your oyster, you know, it's going to produce pearls or agitation, right? So so that I started, but give you an example. My birthday was on Christmas Day. I was 9 days old, and I had a football in front of me. My dad got me a football, a big football, a regular football, and there's a picture of a baby with a football. So it gives you an idea of what kind of thing you're put into.
Yeah.
So for me, that started the thing of, well, this is what gives you value. You're a sporty guy. You do sports. You're a manly. You know, you go off to defend your country if you're called. That's honor. So and then I think my mom was an immature person to be a mother, but you know, mother's mother no matter what. You
Yep.
gotta love your mother, you know. And of course, I did. And so, but out of their, you know, divorce, when it became clearly this is not going to be a tenable situation, you know. So, like many people, divorced parents, right?
Yeah.
So around five. So what happened? What I realized at that point, you know, I know this is a long story, but here we go. Is that when that took place, uh, I remember that was the point where about five, I landed. Before that, I could dissolve, and I think a lot of kids they have their own contact. If they're not just psychically or emotionally shut off real early, they kind of slowly enter into where their sense of personhood becomes established around five, around six, you know. Then you're off to school for the education. Then they start loading up all the information.
Right.
They inform you, just meaning that all those mental formations now, your creative spirit, your personal sense of being now starts to identify with a way, an acceptable, valued way to express,
Conformity.
right?
Right.
And yeah, you conform because this is what the value system, and then so you know, going back, you know, go back and forth on things, but what the authentic thing I think got lost. It's
Yeah.
sort of like you start off clear, open sponge, taking it all in. At a certain point, that sponge gets saturated with the information. You start to fit in. You cry about it. You fight about it. Right? You're not the boss of me. You know, all those things that
Hmm.
come with early age, because we're free beings. We start off free and whole, but we come into a thing, you can say the karmic world, the world of positive, negative, all the polarity. We come into that world. So whatever our authenticity or our real expression now gets shaped. It starts getting shaped by approval, value, disapproval. And of course, I went right into that mill. You know, you start behaving badly then, because you don't like it. Fuck that. You know, you don't
Right.
you don't even have the words to express your dislike for how you're being, how your sensitive self is being. But you get calloused, right? You get
Right.
calloused a bit. You fit in. You start having fun. Now now you're in a limited playing field. So for me, that authentic person now was playing the game. Okay, I'll do this. It'll get me by. I'll do this for crumbs of love from mother, or you know, and so then you kind of to me, for me personally, started entering a realm of pain. No, not any, because I had a really, I mean, it's not like I didn't have a good life. My dad made plenty. There was money, there was food. We always had a house, so I have no complaints. And yet, if you're going, well, where did authenticity or our real expression get diverted? It would be around at that point. And I don't know that I knew any authentic people per se
Exactly.
then.
Yeah.
So there was no models. I would say my dad is very authentic in his own expression. And but you see, like with your parents, it's like they give you the seed of discontent,
Mhm.
right? They
Thank
pass
you.
on the
Huh?
seed of discontent. Yeah. They don't mean to, they just do.
Right.
And I feel like in my, in meditation and all that, through time, you start unraveling that, and it grows in you, this discontent. The discontent because you go, well, I know I'm whole, but why don't I feel whole? Why do I feel separate? Right? Why do I not feel connected to people? What's this pain? Like, so I would say for me that journey just started to go, I want to know why I feel pain. What is this painful feeling? I couldn't even identify it. And then then I thought, then I was born at kind of like at the beginning of the hippie. I mean, I was came, 16, right at the beginning of the hippie movement and all of that.
Right.
14, whatever. So then I got exposed to LSD, pot, and all this stuff. Now the whole thing starts breaking down. My I start kind of retreating back into, wait a minute, I have some self-realization in these experiences, and of, again, touching my authenticity, you could say. Just feeling it's like, oh, my legitimacy, whatever, is not tied to other people's beliefs, right?
So you realize, so were you aware of that? Were you aware of this, you know, this sense of like you were just conforming and not fitting it, and your authenticity was sort of waning away, really? Were you aware of that until until you were older, or excuse me, before you were older and, started doing LSD and everything started breaking down and unraveling? Was there a sense of awareness of that before then, or no?
The
Before
only sense was I felt I was in darkness,
Yeah.
in the sense, like, no, I was still having fun. I was, you know I started doing high school football, which I actually hated. My dad and my uncle were pushing me into, like, another, there was a phase where it was just like, oh, now you're doing sports, and so I do it. I liked sports before it became a uniform. As soon as I had to be on a uniform and be against the other team rather than just fun, I'm having so much fun playing football, baseball. This is just fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, as soon as you put on the uniform that's backed by some local lumber yard, or some whatever, you then it wasn't fun. And I go,
Right.
no, I don't like this. And so now these things that were fun, as I move into age, like 13, 14, you go, it starts getting dark, because inwardly, because the things that everybody else is going, yeah, yeah, the most likely to succeed is because they're doing all the right things. And I
Yeah.
was not that guy. And I know my partner very similar, of course, it's like, I don't feel like I fit. And
Yeah.
so right around that time, I started spending what I've always done, which is interesting to me, even since I was really small. I would do stuff alone. I'd walk on, because I grew up in by Mission Bay, originally San Diego area. I could walk on beaches and bays by myself. So I've always been contemplative, even as a kid, and I would sing to myself as I'd walk. I just make things up. So I started that very early on, and that was my connect. I would just start singing what I felt. No one was around, and I would just start going, la, singing, la, la, la. And I even remember one time about 5, walking down the street, no shirt, and shorts, and I'm singing my guts out in this little town I lived in. And one of the local, like, teenage girls that I knew, she knew me and whatever. She saw me and just started laughing because here's this little kid singing his guts out. And I went, oh, like,
Yeah.
I kind of like shelved it a bit. That was just a memorable moment. Even though she wasn't making fun of me, she was just, uh, you know,
Right.
kids, enjoying it, really, not mocking me. But I just remember that moment, and like that because it was my real authentic expression.
Right.
Your childlike joy, glee, and that started getting, what happened with the more information, that plant, that joyous expression started getting packed down
Yeah.
underneath expectations and whatnot. So it wasn't until around 14, 15 that I started noticing that, I started questioning a lot. Like, well, that doesn't seem right. But no one to talk to about it.
Yeah.
Wasn't, you don't, right? Well,
Yeah.
okay, like I was telling you about the moon cycle thing we were talking about that. And I remember in sixth grade, there was an assembly for the girls only, and it was very private, no boys. So all the boys are going, how come they get to go? What's the deal?
Right. Right.
And afterwards, all the girls come back and they go, we know something you don't know. And I'm going, huh, you know. And I realized, I know it sounds a little weird, but that would have been a very good time for the boys to go, to
Right.
understand. They're preparing women for motherhood, essentially. It's like you're going to start having your monthly bleeding, and you're going to start, so they made it like gross. They literally made it that way by going, and it was like, then it couldn't be discussed. Oh, she's on the rag, right?
Right.
She's this. So I grew up with that thing, and I never really thought about it. Like, it didn't impact me directly, like, whatever. I kind of like blew it off. But then as I got further into it and I got married, first time, I had forgotten all about that thing, except, like being careful not to get a girl pregnant. It's like high school craziness. But other than that, it was just like that realm of me, that my feminine side, or that part, had to be now pushed aside a bit in order to not recognize that this part of humanity, the feminine part of humanity, if you just close it off, whether you're male or female, if you're a female and you think, oh, this is, you're hiding and whatever the mental thing that goes, if you're not aware of that, you can't be authentic with it.
Right.
And I realized, wow, what they should have done, and this would help the whole world really if they did. It's like, have the guys go to that and teach them how to take care of, recognize the signs of, be attentive to, nurture that female, because what guys don't realize is, like, that's them.
Right.
It's like, no, you don't get it. It's like, if you, like, when my wife all of a sudden had these massive chocolate cravings, right? It was all newly married, and all of the next day, just a raving bitch. Just, that could be her own words. I'm not saying she was, but
Right.
I was just, and then all of a sudden I'm at fault for all the things I don't know about. If I would have known, then I wouldn't have been defensive, for one. Like,
Right.
I didn't do anything. So you go and start creating this cycle that emotions now are really tied up with a fight. You have to fight to get your expression out. And a good fight only comes if someone else can be blamed, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we all grow
So
up that way, right? Like that is a thing. And like you're saying, it's basically taught to us, right? It's like,
absolutely, we're informed,
yes.
being that the information just means that spiritual energy is coming into us but because of our culture, it's cultured in such a way that it's the form that it takes is a limited misconception that is good for business.
Right.
It's good for the running of the world and control, but it's not good for self-realization. It's for those who want to be followers. Not that they want to be. It's we all want tribe, and we all want,
To
what you can
belong.
see in the world now. You don't have to look far at all. We need the good company, like we of like-minded souls, and people that accept us, and that we can accept and broaden that circle. But that other way of the informing and culturing and socializing, the authenticity gets choked off, and we become a sheep.
Yeah.
We become followers. And you'll notice that in the world of commerce, that college is really to create the best and brightest, so these companies
Yeah.
can go siphon off that cream. It's like society creates this thing, they churn it, they churn it, they churn it, the butter comes up. Who gets it? They take the best and brightest. And where does that bright mind, what's it now paid to focus on?
What the company wants.
What the company wants.
Yeah.
And because they give you, it's like, we're going to pay you really well, but you're staying in this box. We're paying you to stay in this velvet cage, or golden cage, like they call Google. It's a golden cage. I have friends that work there, and they provide everything. They have on-site restaurants. It's like it's all included,
Yeah.
and you go, and they pick you up. I mean, this is one version of it. And who wants to leave that lovely nest? You know, and so I started noticing, again, when I did get in, have those kind of mind breaking trips, I literally had to kind of go, and I know many people have gone through this, a psychological death,
Right.
where I was stood outside my body and saw my body in a glass casket, with my father going, I told him not to take LSD. And so I went through a few deaths where it was actually like a death, but it was, and this is uh of natural cultures, like you could say, native cultures that are indigenous. They recognize that the young man, before the baby has to die, the child has to die, in a sense, for the young warrior, young man, young woman to be born. Because when a woman, again, it goes back to why the moon cycle is such an important point for everybody. Because, again, like we were saying before, the original calendar, is the moon cycle,
Right.
because nature gave it to you. It's like, okay, at the end of the cycle, you're letting all of that go, that creative potential. The woman's like releasing it from her body. It's a super organic process. And when that happens, it's like, okay, no, I'm not making a new me now. It's like, now the person is like, begins again to accumulate all the next necessary chemistry to make a body, to make a self. And
It's
so
an
what we,
evolution. Yep.
yeah, because so we are, you and I and everyone, we're the front line of all those have gone before us, waiting for the original authentic expression to find its way, to regroup, so to speak, pull all those separate ideas of ourselves into one whole. So nothing really happened, but we let it, we went for the ride.
Right.
We've gone for the ride. We go, okay, we'll do this thing. Let's do it. And then when enough pain and experience happens, and you go, oh, okay, let's switch this around a bit.
Yeah.
So, and it continues, Well, anyways, so I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but
Well, it's just interesting because, I love how you had this awareness at an earlier age. I mean, I was always sort of the black sheep, right? The rebellious one saying, fuck this, I'm not following your rules and stuff like
right,
that.
right,
But, to your point, like at a certain point when I had experienced enough pain or whatever, suffering, whatever it was, I ended up conforming, right?
yeah,
And then I followed the path that, was sort of set out for me by my parents instead of staying in that more authentic state, right? And it was out of, I mean, I know it was, some trauma. I was getting beat up as a kid and some things like that, and so it just, I was emotionally underdeveloped because of that. And I just didn't know what was possible for me. I didn't believe things were possible for me, and I was living in a lot of fear because of what that abuse was how my mind was interpreting that abuse.
right.
And so I kind of stayed. I went to college, and I got a job at a large financial institution and worked there for 25 plus years, and
Wow.
I was authentic as much as I could be in that conforming state. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Oh, totally.
And then I, came to Yandara and I had a huge awakening when I was attuned to Reiki. And then everything in my life has changed now and I'm walking more authentically than I ever have. But, I spent the most years of my life conforming,
Sure.
and on that path and in corporate America and in the shackles of all of that and, scared to move away from it and suffering a lot and things like that. And so I just love, when people are questioning all of this and going through their self-realization and recognizing it at an earlier age, because it didn't happen for me until much later in life.
Yeah.
And I needed, like I know I needed to go through that to get where I'm at today and all that.
Yeah.
But it's just really interesting. And I love hearing about, different people's journeys and paths and the strength in those younger years when you break
Hmm.
away from that.
Yeah. Even with the, like you say, what got me into yoga is after a number of psychedelic, like I said, like kind of psychedelic death experiences, and and I know many people have had a similar thing where you become one with everything. Literally, this it's our natural state is we are, and then but in order to carry on in the world, it's they call it in Sanskrit lila. It's God's play. It's the play of polarity. As soon as the spirit divide, as it comes into a body, male, female, or call it what you will, positive, negative, whatever it is,
Mhm.
in order to create, you need because if something's one and it needs to divide, it has its two sides in order to have those magnetics. And like you say with the Reiki, you feel that it's the energy before it becomes physical. And so it's then guided with, and I'm no Reiki, I understand it from another point, but it's just using your awareness to touch that polarity before it becomes physical. And then with intention, you're moving the energy. So I think, what happened to a lot of us is there are different breaking points. And in a way, whether it's a divorce, like I remember, after being married a few years, have a kid, I'm kind of going, I'm involved in yoga and all the stuff, practicing daily and all the things. And now I'm married, and now I have, oh, it's like my teacher, my yoga teacher, this Indian man named Baba Haridas. He goes, well, now you have a kid, now you need a job. It's like, for whatever reason, and is I've never really had that kind of desire to amass money, to do, it's just not in me. And I've had to learn it. Some people, it seems, well, at least when I look around, they're great at planning, uh, their career and all that stuff. That's not the gift that I got.
Right.
Just so if I'm being authentic, like that was not of an interest to me. Like my dad goes, "What are you going to do when you get old?" And I go, "I'm just trying to figure out what I'm doing now."
Right.
You know,
Right.
and now that my dad's passed last year, I'm uh, also going, well, what does that mean? He died at 96, did great, he did all the things that he wanted to do and set up his life in a very secure fashion.
Yeah. Familiar.
And I did the exact opposite.
I love
I
that.
have the exact opposite in the sense of security, any of that. It's just like I've just thrown that to the wind. Uh, and, and so in a sense, I've lived on the edge for a long time and I don't even know why, but I feel like that's, for whatever reason, same as as music. And I'll give you an example. Yesterday, 2 nights ago, I played at a party in Todos Santos. Played music with the band at a party. Ended up staying to like 11 or just 12 at night, but didn't go to sleep really late. Then I thought, well, I now have one day off. I have a whole day off because now the busy season with yoga, the yoga school and music and all this stuff is totally underway. And then I get a message in the morning, oh, do you want to play tonight? Which was last night. And I was going, no, I don't want to do that. And then April, my partner's going, I'll just do it. And I go, oh, God. So it's set up to go, okay, well, you're going to do a solo set and it's an evening of music at this thing. And I go, oh, okay. So I started thinking I'm going to do more of uh, my more sensitive songs or ones that are more like a little more chill. And then I got there and they go, oh no, you're now you're headlining. You're the last guy. And I'm going, okay. So now it's going to be starting at 10. Yeah. All right. And they go, is that okay? And I go, well, okay. And then I think, okay, so now they finally go, oh, so you're up next. A lot of people, in this place. And then they go, okay, plug you in, but there's already people playing. So now I just go up to join them. So all of my plans, which is this is my life, like as far as how well I plan and it just goes away. Uh, and so now that I'm just joining a band that's just playing, we're playing. So I fit right in. Oh, okay. So all my plans are gone. And the guy's up and now it's not a solo. It's now, but I'm playing with the band that was there before. And so everything changed. And my partner, I could tell she wasn't super happy about it. She's going, I was really hoping you would play this song and that song. And I'm going, I walked in the situation, all of a sudden it was completely different.
Yeah.
So that I felt like, well, there you go. That's my life. Is and in a way, it's like if I'm being authentic, that seems the way it works for me.
Well,
You
that's
know,
where some of the best magic happens, right? Is when our plans do get kind of shoved aside. It doesn't maybe feel like that in the moment, but some of the most magical things happen in those times. And I love how you said that you lived on the edge because my heart like feels that and it has felt that all my life. Like I have this desire to just be this gypsy and, just do whatever and not have any plans and just, travel around and moved around. And I've always felt that way, but never really followed my heart until now. So, your dad, you said he, sort of lived this life all set up and secured and planned. That's, how I lived much of my life too. I wanted that the security of that paycheck from the corporation, that I worked for. And so did your dad approve of how you rolled your life out, how you lived?
not originally, not initially. It's like another little story is like, so he was all ready to send me to college. He went a couple of years, but he wanted me to get a good education.
Yeah.
And I was like, I would say I would be plus average in high school. Like I did my homework. I didn't want the shit from people. I didn't want teachers to harass me about it. So I just did the homework. I did the test. I didn't skip school. I mean, I get high before school and stuff like that. But I I went along with that because I saw more trouble. I don't like confrontations. You know,
Mhm.
myself is one thing, but I just wanted to not cause waves for myself with my dad or so. I just did that, got decent grades. I was like, I'm just trying to get through this thing,
Right. Yeah.
with a
It is.
shred of dignity. And then after high school, I started going to a junior college. My dad got me a van to drive to school, so it's all set up. I go for like 3 months. Fucking hate it
Yeah.
because it's just high school. And now, but the teachers could smoke in class. And it's just like, it reminds me of Pinocchio when the bad boys, he's like, we're going to just put you on this island. It'll be super fun. And, it's like you can start drinking at bars almost like at that age. And I remember going, well, this is just stupid.
Yeah.
They're teaching, the thing I wanted to become. I've always had an interest in psychology because I want to know how this was made. I
Right.
want to know the construct of the thing I'm working through, which is my psychology, like your psyche. And so right away they go, the first classes they put headphones on you, and it's like uh the original or the origin of psychology is Pavlov's study with the salivating of a dog to the bell. That is all I needed to know about psychology to figure the whole thing out. Right? Everything is based. All of the psychology is on that original thing. What is the cause that makes you do that? If it's a bell, but it doesn't satisfy you, but
Yeah.
it kicks in the gear, there you go. Now you know how everybody got hooked is because the bell indicates some kind of satisfaction and completion. Right.
Like
So
belonging or whatever it is, fitting in. Yep. Yep.
yeah, it indicates this will be the thing. Now, the other thing is uncertainty. Uncertainty means that energy is always moving. It's not fixed. It's like nothing set in stone. And if you think about yoga or Reiki or anything, what is spiritual energy doing? It's movement and vibration that creates a sound and a tone, and that tone we express according to how it passes through our psyche.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you just did the sound bath training. Well, that is probably the most subtle physical thing that can kind of activate that subconscious thing where we started shutting down. So that those tones seep in through the psyche and kind of start decoding.
Yes.
Right? It starts decoding because really, when you think about it, I'll go back another step. One LSD trip, which was very interesting at 16. I took acid by myself, which I almost always did, and just went into nature and just
Mhm.
chilled.
I love that.
So it was coming on really strong, and I was on this beach, Torrey Pines, California. I was walking on the cliffs and on the beach, and I started noticing on the water what now I know is code. It was numbers and letters, and numbers in sequences across the rising up out of the ocean as it came off of my soul, so to speak.
Wow.
So that downloaded information, because I was in this open state, was now being revealed, this first shell layer of like, you're encoded into this situation to behave and access limited information. It's a construct. It's
Mm.
not like that code. What was underneath the code was free spirit.
Right.
The code was taking information, manipulating it into such a way that it could be used as a control.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not by one specific person or anything, but it's sort of like if you're trained from day one to fit in, that fit is controlled by a manipulation. Right? It's so the bell goes off, go to class.
Right.
Bell goes off, fire alarm, emergency.
Yeah.
Bell goes off, time to eat. Bell goes off, bell goes off. Now, who determines where those fucking bells go off? Some system that is also layered to a hierarchical ego structure
Yeah.
that ties into the you could say the collective ego.
Yeah.
It ties into the collective ego, and those people or that are interested in being the manipulator, which you can see, I'm sure you have many experiences in your life where you can go, why does that person need to do that? Well, it always comes from lack and fear.
Right. Always.
Because if you can keep away, I mean, this is the thing why people are so afraid of death, is you can keep away from people going, I really want to know myself. Well, then something has to kind of pass away. Something in us has to kind of die.
Right.
And look at nature. It's all it's doing all the time. It's living and dying. It's just like
One
constant.
cycle, one big cycle. Yeah.
Right. So I think, so when I saw that, I had my first song too. I was walking down the beach and I started hearing this song, man. It was Life is What You Want It to Be. Life is what you want it to be. Don't you want love? Don't you want trust? Don't you want happiness? Life is what you want it to be. Just what do you want? So
I love that.
that was, I'd say, the first time where my spirit or my inner self just says, what do you want? It's not what the world wants. They're just an amalgam of nonsense and manipulations. It's not that it's bad. It's built. It comes from fear of death, fear of knowing yourself. Because if you know who's behind the curtain doing stuff, which is your false sense of ego, once you know that, the kind of that's game over for that. It doesn't mean the whole world has figured the same.
Yeah. For years, I didn't even recognize that what I wanted mattered. That was just this
Right.
experience that I was having, because
Yeah. Who are you?
right, who am I? Like, I don't have a decision in this because, like I mentioned that, I was beat up when I was little but everything always looked perfect on the outside, like as long as we were in our dresses with the lace and our hair was done up and curly and we had our black Mary Janes on, then, and going to church every Sunday, then everything was okay. And so how my brain interpreted that was, it doesn't matter what you think and feel. It matters what everybody else on the outside thinks and feels.
Exactly.
And so that's just how my brain interpreted it. And again, I don't say these things to blame my parents because, things were passed down to them. They were doing the best they could, all that stuff.
Good.
But, it just stuck with me for so long. And then that fear of not fitting in, I lost myself in order to fit in, right? Because that's what I was sort of taught to do and conditioned to do. Like it matters to fit in. And so then my sense of, you lose you don't really belong. If you're losing yourself to
Right.
fit in, then you don't really belong because you don't belong to yourself anymore, right?
Right.
Yeah.
No, totally. Well, you think about uh, I the punishment in some of the native tribes. Like this is a classic, is ostracize. It's like
Right.
all of a sudden, to everybody else, you're dead. They don't even. You're like a ghost. They don't see you, and so then you are separated, literally cut off from this hub of nurturance and acceptance and stuff. So if you do something that's what's considered really unforgivable, that's it. You're out. And if you notice, like uh, during the last few years, during the COVID thing and all that, it really it was a real clear to me example of that is if you don't go along with whatever the program is,
Right.
then you're anti. And it couldn't be farther from the truth. Or it's like it really went back in a way. If you go, well, ultimately this is all good. To me, I think even all that, ultimately this is perfect, all perfect. The part that is that it, but that doesn't mean me and you can just stop and go, whatever. What
Right.
it means is like work begins, or the process is now, well, try to help other people in any way you can, just to accept themselves and realize just because you're not going along with the mass of humanity, it doesn't mean that you're wrong. And you don't need to make them wrong. It's just like again, do you want the real me, or do you want the acquiesced me, the one that goes, oh, I'm doing it for others, and whatever that is. And I'm not knocking anybody. Like, I make fun of everything, to tell you the truth. I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Every fucking thing I can care about. uh you know you take the whole thing and go, well, what's right in front of you? um when people talk about war and all those things, like and all the horrible things in the world, how God can let happen and everything. And you go, well, right now the planet's waking up. uh if you say and I would say right now the Earth Mother is having her moon cycle.
Mhm.
It's a grand moon cycle. It's huge,
Grand moon cycle, yes.
right? And so
Mhm.
what happens with the moon cycle? All the stuff that isn't needed gets flushed out of the Earth body. So now the negative side of that is you have people that are what do you call them? They're actually would like to eliminate a lot of people on the planet. So now that's one way of thinking of it. But the to me, the thing to be eliminated is the wrong idea,
Right.
the core ignorance, which is, to me, the uh, the solidity of idea that we must have conflict in order to move forward, that we must destroy one in order to do this. You
Right.
know, it's a what do you call it? A perversion of the creative idea. It's like it's got enough of it's got enough of reality. It's like, I'm going to take this bit of it,
Mhm.
blow it up, weaponize it, make it into a weapon. Take 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 the God-given, goddess-given creative energy, which is free to all, a gift from the universe, and weaponize it. Make it so I have it, you don't have it. Make it so there's a conflict. And you go, well, this has been going on a long fucking time. This notion, again, using gender ideas, it's a very masculine, gone too far, way
Right.
out of balance,
Way overboard. Yes. Yeah.
way overboard. Now, but what the problem, and you see offshoots all over of what has happened with that is, it's like the whole gender identity, the whole this and that. It's like, if you think that the outside thing is the real thing, that your personality, your preferences and stuff are you, then yes, you get into trouble in that realm, because then you have conflicting viewpoints, rather than go, every person is valuable. I would say, uh, I understand. This is, again, it's another diversion off. It's part of it. Someone last year was saying, "Oh, they complained at Yandar," and I never heard this. One of the female students said, "Oh, why are you using masculine and feminine?" They had a hard time with it, and I'm
Hmm.
going, I didn't know that was a thing. And then all of a sudden, I become aware. Maybe it's 2 years ago. I become aware, and it's been going on for a while, of gender politics. gender, all the stuff that you see now that's fucking insane to me. It's just because I accept people, I don't care. But so right in the midst of that, and I was going, so I was really curious because me being me, I went through a lot of questioning of, well, I go, well, what's my identity? Well, if you're going to say you have to be something, I go, well, I'd be bi then, because I
Right.
feel like, you know, I'm both. I have a very feminine feeling. I feel like, yeah, I'm both. I cannot. I'm not going to go. I'm just a man. I am a man. I'm in a man's body, but I'm not that. I'm not my body. I use it to get around. Fuck, it's not me. But it
Functional.
is. It's a function of nature. I came here and I needed a way to get around. It's like if even on a ride in a car, you get a car, you drive it around, but it's not you. But if you look around, how many people are identified with their car?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, for so
Oh,
many
I
people
got to have.
identify with their jobs, their careers. I was one of them. Yeah.
So when you start breaking that down further and further and further, you go, well, that's the fucking problem. Is the I now this, and I would say this is for me my take on yoga as far as like the essential thing. The I that identifies, you turn it around instead of going. It's not your expression that's your identity. It's before that. It's like, so when they say in yoga, like there's this word, it's called pratyahara, just means inward turning, or the action of consciously turning the mind inward. And now, because different people have different proclivities for their emotions and stuff, the to me the simplest way is go, well, this I that wants to do, be, and have, what is it before that?
Right.
Who am I before I start adding on? I'm Bolo, and I'm married to April, and I play guitar, and I work on Dara. I was like, that's not me. That, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's my those are relationships that I am involved in. But like I think we were saying the other day, it's like for every person in your life, you're a different person. Your mom and dad don't look at you like your partner. You're not the same person.
Right. Because, well, we might be the same person, but in their eyes, because it's through their lens with which they see, then we're a different person, right? For everybody.
Right.
I used to literally be a different person for all the different, like I would be a different person at work than I was at home. And I,
Absolutely.
yeah, I would put my mask on for work and all the things I needed to look and do and say all the right things and, blah, blah,
Right.
blah. And now I just strive to be my one person, right? Like who I am on the inside.
Right. Right.
And that's what you're talking about, right? Is like the
Yeah.
minute we start looking externally for things that we really need to look internally for from ourselves,
Yeah.
that's when we lose our authenticity. That's when we lose our connection. Um,
Yeah.
and so, like, so that's the journey then, right? I mean, is that what our listeners can take away from this? The journey is the inward journey. It's
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's like if you want to if you really want to understand yourself and how the world why the world is the way it is,
Mhm.
then at a certain point when the outside world is like poking you and it's not giving you any relief, like the Buddha is a classic example. He saw death in the streets as a young man. He was protected by his parents. He saw death, old age, and he started asking about it. His parents were trying to shield him from reality because you don't need to see that. And as soon as he started asking that question, why, began his journey. And because he was all of a sudden suffering. So our suffering is a gift unless we make it about me. It's like my suffering, right? That's another matter. It's like, if you look around, the world is suffering. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of this and that.
A lot, yeah.
So now, do you get on board and go on campaign against suffering, or do you go, I want to know? This is the very yogic approach, is like, I want to know the cause of suffering, how to relieve suffering. So who's the first person that has to figure that out? You're not going to go out and do that. Yeah. So that mind that was always doing this before, looking for film fulfillments and something in the outside world, is now a conscious choice to go in, turn it around.
Right.
So the I becomes the pivotal, that sense of I, which you feel here in your heart. No one goes, I, you go, I. Right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're a linguist and you're traveling around in native countries, you don't go, me, George. You go, me, right? Very simple. You point to your heart, because everybody knows that spot, that I spot. Now, so what yoga, to me, the principal path of yoga is everything is hinging on one sense of self. My I am. So this I am, when you follow it, so the idea is follow it to its source. God, goddess. Our source is the all and everything. So that's a conscious decision, because you go, all right, I've had enough of this becoming fractured, and also believing, just because most people are believing it, doesn't mean I have to.
Right.
This I is your pure self. And when it becomes the I of relationships and everything, it becomes fractured unless it's conscious. And then that's life work. This is, like, if I was pissed off yesterday and I'm happy today, it doesn't mean that I'm bad or anything. It's just I hit a frustrated block. I hit it. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's all
You know,
part of it.
I don't. It's like, I have no thought of perfection that I'm going to be this or that. It's like yoga has these other tenets that are help steer us when we're taking this inward journey to uncover our I sense. And okay, so it's like, for people that are watching, I feel like I'm just talking to you, it's like, so
Yeah,
for
yeah.
people, which I am,
Which I
but for
love.
anyone that's watching, it's really the core practice of any spiritual thing, is to want to know how you became encumbered in beliefs that keep you from knowing and being your authentic person. Like, you want to know how it happened. So that becomes, instead of like what I think a lot of people do, is they go, you get this teaching, you get this teaching, you start laying on the teachings to create yet another ego that will be, I'm right.
Yeah.
So now, again, they go hand in hand, because like you said, you get your tool belt and you do this, but that's a conscious use of the ego. You can't not have an ego. We're naming it that. Like, you can't not.
Right.
So the
Part of
thing
us.
is, it's like, how do you let the spirit, don't block the spirit? And that's where the inner work, or the inner uncovering of, how did my authentic I, get covered? So you start, instead of adding on, oh, I'm this, and this. Now you go, and you turn around and you use the question, like the whole thing. Don't question anything. The whole
Right.
last few years, like, oh, don't question that. Oh, you're asking questions. That means you're this. It means you're like. See, that's because we're getting closer to the source of the conflict. And
Right.
so it's like, oh, don't ask. Don't look at behind the curtain. Right. But that's an inner thing. That's a, like, self quest. There's no blame in it. It's like some of the things that it is really I would say it's not easy to uh stop blaming. And we say it's like be lame. The if you blame, you be lame. You
Right.
if you take responsibility in all your relationships, then it's like always on you. Always. Because that is putting you in the driver's seat again. If you think that the world did this to you, it's not true. If as soon as you go, I own this is my responsibility,
Mhm.
not your job. This is my ability to respond is much different than responsibility. Your responsibility to do this, it's your responsibility, right? So they took that word and weaponized it.
Right, exactly.
They took say they. So you know all of these, that's where the power of sound and truthfulness and these things are so important to being authentic. Is you're taking sound, which is the primal god voice, goddess voice. You're taking sound and configuring it in such a way that it manipulates rather than frees.
Right.
Right? So that's why I say the word it represents the unstruck sound. It's like there's no manipulation on it. It's just pure sound vibration.
Mhm.
Creative, it's the creative life force sound. Now, as people start to express that sound in their own way, they start manipulating it, changing it. Now, so I know I jump around a lot. Forgive me, but so what karma yoga is, if you all heard of that, is it just means the yoga of action. So how does an authentic person act in a world in such a way that they don't bind themselves to negative karma, negative reaction? Like
Mhm.
how do you move through the world? So if you're a yogi, you go, okay, now I'm practicing yoga, which just means really self-awareness. I'm practicing my self-awareness, being true to myself. It's a practice.
Oh, yes.
And as you're doing it, as you're practicing and engaging, you'll find that you'll start seeing your own blocks quite readily.
Yes. Yeah.
And so rather than cover those things up, which is, oh, well, how do I patch that? No, no, no. Follow it.
And peel it away, right? Like you were saying
Yeah,
earlier, rather than adding to, start peeling those layers away and asking
yeah,
questions, right, of yourself. Okay, is this really my belief? Is this really how I feel? Or was this
right,
sort of, installed in me or told to me, or I was
right.
informed of this, whether it was parents or school or relatives or whatever it was. But that's a scary process. It's a scary what's the word I'm looking for? It's a scary thing to think about embarking on, right? To
Right.
start taking responsibility and saying I'm responsible for the, rather than placing blame on everybody else, right? Because
Sure.
like I know this because I've been through it, right? It's fucking scary to
Well, it's hard.
say I'm responsible for everything in my life instead of blaming A, B, and C and this person and that person and society and culture and all the stuff, right?
Yeah.
But then, when you really start to go through that process and realize it actually is a relief because then you aren't responsible for anybody but yourself, and as
Exactly.
long as you're not being codependent and worried about everybody else and what they're thinking and feeling, if you really are just worried about yourself and being responsible for yourself, then it's like, oh, okay, well, that's not bad. And if I have this higher power, source, God, universe, whatever you want to call it, to help me out and spirit guides, then it's like, okay, well, I'm not alone in all this.
No, no,
Um,
you've joined the
so
team.
it becomes an easier process. One thing I wanted to ask you about, because I've been contemplating this and actually struggling with it a little bit myself, right? So I've gone through this huge journey of, I was always looking externally for everything, even how to look and act and dress and all
Sure.
these things, right? And now, how I got my love, all of it. And so now I get all of that from within myself, like I find love through my self-love. I don't, yes, do I want my kids and my wife to love me and all these things, my parents?
Right.
Yes, of course, but I don't need that or look for it in order
Right.
to love myself. I go inside for that.
Yeah.
But I am a person who loves recognition and appreciation
Sure.
and an acknowledgement from others. And
Yeah.
so I've been kind of struggling with reconciling that, right?
Hmm.
Because I have been on this quest to just get everything from myself internally. Yet I still really love when people appreciate me or say they
Sure.
do, acknowledge me in certain ways. And so can you help me with that or talk about that? Like,
Yeah. Well, I think, we want to love and we want to be loved. It's like I was thinking of, oftentimes I use music for how I see things. It's like I see things through music and sound. That's
mhm,
kind of main things. And, you know, a musician needs ears. It's the other half of the thing. So when people appreciate the music, the songs, like if you like, because I'm a songwriter, poet, and whatnot, I find there's a songwriter, poet, whatever, artist. You get this information. Everybody's getting this wave of information. It's just coming across everyone, and the way an artist gets it is different than the way that someone else would get it,
mhm,
because what they get is this information, but it comes in as a pressure to express. It's like this wave comes in, and now how it's going to be expressed, well, it has to go through your psyche program, your individual contact.
right.
And so then as an artist or musician, in order to complete this thing, it's like it's between you and the spirit. In
Yeah.
order to do this, you have to, as Black Elk would say in his vision, he realized, well, it's one thing to have a vision, it's another thing to express it, to get it out.
Mhm.
It's like giving birth. Same thing. It's like it's one thing to have sex. It's one thing to make love. It's one thing to do that. And quite the other thing to bring the conjugal love all the way through this body and give birth to and go through the process. So
Right.
an artist does the same thing with energy. You get this download of, it's like a pressure, that what it does is it puts pressure on all that subconscious psyche that you've been implanted with,
Mhm.
and says, how can we turn this into something beautiful? Say you hear something terrible, which is pretty much a lot. You hear all the things going on in the world. You go, well, either I can rail against that and blame the motherfuckers for doing this and that. Oh, they did it, and the president did it, and they didn't do it, and because of years ago, they bombed us, and here you go. What's a big giant knot? Big giant
Yeah.
blame knot. Now you can get in there and go, yeah, yeah, yeah. You get on their team and you rail about it. But the fact is, your thread in that weave, your personal thread in that weave, either, now this is kind of like the yoga reaching out into the world, is if you pull your thread from believing in that, in other words, it's just a matter of like uncovering yourself, all of a sudden automatically pulls the thread from that fabric, that of belief, the collective belief.
Mhm.
So excuse me if I move here or there, but so when you do that, there's a little bit of insecurity that takes place. And like you said, so for, again, I go back to the artist. So as you get that download to express something, because the town I live in, it's artists and musicians all over the place.
Right.
It's like amazing that way. So we're in good company. But you see, the angst of an artist, the angst of a musician, not that it's special, it's just that we are the responsibility is like, how do you take shitty looking information that's like difficult and turning that into beauty? Well, you can take manure from a cow and put it in the garden and it helps grow food.
Right.
So basically, we humans, our highest potential is to take the unbreathable and make it breathable. We do what trees do. We take in information and we make it breathable. We take in gross information and make it beautiful. And so this is our job. This is our function as people. We have this capacity, ability to take in all the things that have ever happened in all our history, good, bad, and different, and we can cook that inside of ourselves. And by cooking, I mean alchemy. I mean breaking it down. We're breaking it down. It's like you're cooking a pot of stew. At first,
Mhm.
everything's hard, and the beans are hard, the potatoes are hard. Whatever you're putting in there is hard. You cook it for a while, it starts softening, starts breaking down, their flavors start coming out. Put some salt in, it extracts the flavors further. And what we're doing as artists and people is we're getting that we got all these ingredients from forever before, and what we're tasked with, for lack of a word, what our given possibility is to take all of that and turn it into light. Take all of that information and turn it into beauty.
Mhm.
Nature does it all the time.
All the
And
time.
there's violence, and there's some violence involved in nature, but it's only violent to those, storms. You know, there is, we have to take into account that we're on a planet that is subject to so many influences, and we're part of it. So again, it's taking all of that stuff that we have been given and go, how do I turn this into a beautiful thing rather than a divisive thing? How do I turn it into a holy thing that's accessible to everybody? It's not like, oh, I got my group of holy friends, or my religious, or my religion, or my yoga friends, or my this or that. It's like, no. As soon as you start to feel it, then you just share it with, it's like, how do you in each situation open up to the situation that's presented to you? And again, that's the uncertainty thing that's a challenge, because I don't know how that's going to be received. I want to be, like you said, I want to be appreciated. You
Yeah.
and in a true sense, appreciation is like a mutual reflection of love for uh how do you say it? It's like you see this thing in another person, their vulnerable attempt to be themselves, and it's appreciated.
Right.
And like you said, uh I think we just have that in us. It's like part of our code is to go to love and appreciate. The negative side of it is no one loves me, no one appreciates me.
Right. Which
And a lot of us are growing up, well, you didn't do the right thing to be appreciated. So we're kind of like we're working around that root, like the root cause of our suffering is believing that what the unreal, or what's not true about us, is believing that it's true.
right.
The true is that isn't true. It is like, so that, and the question, like, again, when we're questioning ourselves in this inner journey, is we're digging out that root. And why the question, who am I, does that is because soon as you start thinking, oh, I wish there's the feeling that goes with it. It's like, it's like, it's small, it's vulnerable, it's like it's in a little tight space. You feel it, your breath will change around it, and then you go, maybe you cry, you know,
Yeah.
maybe you allow it's sort of like allowing the spirit to flow through you. It wants to flow through you. It wants to flow through you like without if it needs to be violent because you resist it, because you believe in all these mindsets, it will feel violent. It
Yeah.
will feel all these things. But if you go,
Yeah. So I think I know what, or I understand what you're saying. And when I talk about, liking that validation or that appreciation or acknowledgement or recognition, it isn't that I need that,
right.
but I think in order to feel good, I don't need it in order to feel good, but I think what you're saying, I just appreciate having it, but I think what you're saying is that because we're humans, right, walking on the earth together, that we need, or I don't know if need is the right word, but um to have that, to have another human recognize or
Yeah.
appreciate the beauty that you've created or done or whatever is part of it, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
that's how it exists. Am I making
No,
sense?
no, yo, totally. No, it helps it take root. Like
Yeah, it takes
it
shape.
nothing wrong with validation. Like nothing wrong with acknowledging a beauty. Nothing wrong with it. Really, I see it. It's like that's why satsang. And if watching doesn't haven't heard that term, it just means the company of truth, which just means our true community, common unity, our community is a very nurturing, engaging place.
Yeah.
And so musicians, artists, whatever your community is, that it's like thrives. Our spirit, it's like, oh, so our true value now is being revealed. There's nothing that's great.
Hmm.
And so what it's like, again, the negative side of it is only that the past is like, oh, we had to do this and that to get it.
Hmm.
We had to behave in a certain way. And now as you turn your mind around, you go and you start taking that apart, it becomes, oh no, I do this because it feels good.
Right, right.
And then naturally the people go, they want to be around you. They get inspired by you because you're, like you're saying, your podcast, I'm just fucking doing it anyways.
Yeah.
And because inherently in your gut and your heart that who you are is the most valuable thing in the world. And by you just going yes to yourself, other people feel like, and by accepting accolades or whatever, it's just like, what's wrong with basking in the sun? What's wrong with, because you're shining it, it's coming from within you. uh you know
Yeah,
i,
that's
I totally
beautiful.
understand what you're saying.
Okay.
I get it.
All right.
Hopefully that makes sense to you. Like, it feels like it does.
Yes, absolutely. And I was just writing down your quote so I could put that in the show notes. I want to make sure I'm putting some of your gems in the show notes for people because you have so much wisdom. This has been such an interesting and engaging conversation. And, I love you. I love talking with you. I love, gaining your wisdom from every conversation that we have, or that every time I've seen you or listened to you talk. Um, is there any, do you have any final words for our listeners to leave them with?
Yeah, just believe in yourself. It's like, because until you do, no one's gonna.
Right,
it,
right.
it's like you said, scared as fuck of doing it anyways. It's like good advice, because it's a but if you do it, the world will support you, the spirit will support you, there people will show up, that will become your community. And trust, there's like, it's funny, but I find when I go to teach a class or do anything, it's you to be vulnerable, because vulnerable. And when I think of, like, when I say, oh, uh my feminine side, I don't really mean gender or anything. It's just like my receptivity, my vulnerability
Right.
is that at any given moment, I can be aware of what's actually happening because I'm vulnerable, I'm open. And that's the thing that gets shut down in people very early is we're like incredibly sensitive beings. This body mind complex that we are in
Yeah.
is so sensitive, and
Mhm.
we're just beginning really to understand to the degree with which we can affect the outer world, in the sense of, like, well, what can I do about the war, what can I do about this, well, know yourself,
Everything matters. Yep.
love yourself completely, because that wave of self-acceptance, however you want to do it, that wave, that sound wave, that vibrational wave goes to undermine, which is strange, undermine that whole big knot that seems to be out there.
Right.
Because as you take apart your own issues and realize that they're there, you can turn them around to help you. Your pains, turn them to help you.
Yeah.
So it's basically turn in, trust yourself. I mean, really, it's just trust and be your authentic self. I love the name of your podcast because really that sums it up. Just, just do it. You
Yeah.
know,
Because everything we do affects the collective energy, like you're saying, right? And that really everything really starts with us as individuals.
absolutely.
I know that that's, I don't know if what it's called, a cliche or whatever, but it's true. Everything starts with you, with each one of us.
Yeah,
And what you said about just do it and your community will support you and things will start happening. I mean, I'm living proof of that, right? Like
sure.
I wasn't I was living proof of it for 35 years, but kind of in the wrong way. And now, like I'm living proof, like if you just do it and step out and love yourself and be true
Yeah,
to yourself, you know, your your life will change, your community will find you, everything will turn around, and it really does. All if we want a better world and a more peaceful world, then that has to start with each one of us individually.
exactly. It's
Like
not a group. It's
yourself.
not a group thing.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not a religion. It's not any of those things. And like we were saying before, if you take responsibility, and this is again, use that word in the most spirit, like holy way you can think of. We've been given an ability with this self we have to respond to, and we're not fixed. We can respond how we want to.
Yeah, we have the
And
choice.
if we make it from an inner place, from a place of unity, our response will always transform the nonsense into something beautiful, palatable, shareable.
We have to allow it.
We
Allow.
Yeah, so like be vulnerable to it, because it's going to take you on your course of your life will completely change, and you might lose a few things here and there as far as like your limiting beliefs, but that's not so bad.
Right, right, right. It
Right.
makes us more open and not shut off to all the goodness and juiciness that
Exactly.
for
Yeah.
us. So, oh, thank you. Thank you again
Thank
for
you.
being with us. And I just appreciate you so much. And I
Vice
mean,
versa. You same.
is there a place where listeners can find you that we want to tell them?
I have a YouTube channel called Journey in the Moment. And to be honest, to anyone that's watching this, I'm not Joe Tech. And so I have been very slow in self promotion. I didn't grow up with that kind of like Drive,
And did you say journey in the moment?
journey in the moment. Yeah.
Okay, on YouTube. I'll put that in the show notes too. All right. Thank you again, Bolo.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed this immensely, and I just send you so much love.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Bolo is a rare guy, and I appreciate his wisdom and his knowledge and how he weaves so many different things into the conversation. It was just such a pleasure talking with him. I had a lot of fun. And as a side note, I would love to do psychedelics with him someday. Thank you, Bolo, for the great conversation. Okay, here are the takeaways from our talk. 1, life is what you want it to be. Don't you want love? Don't you want trust? Don't you want happiness? 2, don't lose yourself to fit in. If you are losing yourself to fit in, you don't really belong anywhere because you don't belong to yourself anymore. 3, when we start looking externally for things that truly come from within ourselves, we lose our authenticity and our connection. The journey is an inward journey. 4, being true to yourself is a practice. 5, taking radical responsibility for yourself can be scary at first, but you'll come to find that it's actually a relief because then you aren't responsible for anybody but yourself. 6, we all want to love and be loved. 7, showing appreciation is a mutual reflection of love. 8, who you are is the most valuable thing in the world. Believe in yourself because until you do, no one's gonna. When you do, the world will support you, spirit will support you, and your community of people will show up. Trust it. 9, turn inward, trust and be your authentic self. 10, if we want a better and more peaceful world, it has to start with each one of us individually. Okay, a quick plug for my coaching services. I am loving helping my coaching clients lately. They are inspiring me with all of their wins and all the progress that they're having. And I feel super honored most recently because 2 of them asked me to work with their kids, which is just like so cool. One of them is an adult in their early 20s, and the other is a young kid, like in elementary school. And I'm just so flattered and I feel privileged that they trust me with their children. I have a quick testimonial that I received from a client the other day that I wanted to share. So she said, before I started working with Paula, I struggled with workaholism and general unhappiness. But now I understand where my people-pleasing tendencies came from and worked through them with re-narrating my childhood and developing more self-love and self-compassion. I have been able to understand and get out of the unhappy pattern that I've been in for years and now feel powerful enough to make changes in my life. Aw, I'm so happy for you. That was such a beautiful testimonial. Thank you to the client who wrote that. And just a little bit about how far I've come in my journey. I want to share a few things so that you have an idea of some of the things that I could help you with if you were looking for support. I'm just so grateful for how far I've come. And here's a few things. So I went from overworking, talk about workaholism, like I was a workaholic. So I went from overworking and past the point of burnout to creating space and ease in my days. I went from saying I hate my life to I can't wait to wake up for my life. I went from beating myself up about everything, whether it was never getting it all done, whether it was about yelling at my kids and my partner and reacting badly through outbursts, or how I hated my body. I went from all of those things to saying nice things to myself, giving myself grace and responding to those around me with care, hope, and support, and loving my body for all that it's gone through and the 2 beautiful kids that it's given me. I went from never feeling like I was good enough to believing I am worthy of all the things I desire, even when I'm not productive or producing something, which was a big hang up for me. I went from trying to control everything to loosening my grip, going with the flow, and accepting what is. How did I make these changes? And again, these are just some of the things that I did, but I became committed to going inward and doing the work. I became devoted to my spiritual practices, first and foremost, my daily meditation. That is part of what gave me space to respond rather than react. And it did so much more than just that. But I put myself at the top of my to-do list. I started telling myself, I love you, Paula, just the way you are in the mirror. I invested in myself and hired a coach. And again, I did a lot more than that, but this gives you an idea of some of the things that I gives you an idea of how I could help you. So check out my coaching packages, look at my About Me page to learn more about me, book a free discovery call, and we can meet and find out if we're a good match for working together. Some of the best investments that I've made in my life were on coaches for myself. And you can find everything at reikiflowmn.com. It was so awesome to hang out with you today, and I look forward to next week on the Scared as Fuck and Doing It Anyway, Showing Up Authentically podcast. Life is so busy, and I'm just so grateful grateful for you for spending some of your precious time here with me. I hope that my podcast inspires you. I hope it gives you new perspective. I hope it fills you up. I hope it adds positivity to your day. And I hope this episode in particular helps you feel confident in finding your authentic self and fully coming into self-realization. Remember to follow along on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening, because I have so many fantastic episodes coming up. I mean, there are some really good ones in the hopper. So don't miss them. And please download, follow, or subscribe. And if you follow or subscribe, you'll always be notified of when new episodes post. And it also helps other people find the podcast. I'm posting every week for sure on Thursdays, and sometimes more depending on, if I have something that I feel compelled to share. And if you're liking the podcast and benefiting from it, please leave me a review. You can leave reviews in Apple, you can rate in Spotify. And reviews and ratings also help people find us. So that would be awesome. It can help more people. And if you could share this particular episode with just one person that you think would get something out of it, that would be such a huge gift. Send them a link, a text, a DM in the socials, whatever feels best to you. But if you could share it with one person, that would fill my heart. And you're always welcome to email me at paula@reikiflowmn.com with questions, things you want to hear more about, feedback, things you think I could improve upon. I'm always welcome and open to feedback. My whole goal with this podcast is to show up for you. And I really believe that if I'm touching just one person with each episode, I'm doing some good in the world. So I love you so much. We'll see you next week.